Hong Kong police storming into university campus at Polytechnic University. I watch it live. HKPF attack at around 5:27 am. They caught the students by surprise and rushed to the lightly guarded defense line with the cover of hundreds rounds of tear gas shots. Arrest a few students and the students successfully defend the choker point with petrol bomb. The police retreat very quickly afterwards. And they try to say they in no way raided, fucking assholes. Because admitting it was a raid would imply that this has evolved beyond a typical protest and is nearing a civil war. China wants to appear completely in control on the situation, and so they are extremely careful in controlling all narratives regarding HK. I don't think that's going too well for them. They have heard of the internet, right? I think it's much more effective on the home front, which is where they care the most about fitting the flow of information to their narrative. Xi Jinping instructed party members to ignore the whining of other countries in regards to the UAE education camps. This is no different. He only worries about what his own population thinks, because they are the only people who will impact him, and he has been very successful managing them in that respect so far. No major power has shown that they are willing to make any big moves against China yet. What we hear doesn't really matter if none of our leaders are willing to step in and say enough is enough. We didn't raid the place. People inside were setting things on fire, so we went in to save them. Right. Okay, so there are photos of the place being on fire. Are the police setting things on fire? Possibly as a response to being raided? Don't bother, this guy's all over this thread defending the government. Thanks, tagged his profile with hates HK. Tactically it sounds like the protesters here ask rude. Surrounded on all sides. They did well when they evaporated into the city at large and then reappeared later. Despite this, hoping for the best, that they can melt away and continue their fight another day. Even if all of these protesters get rounded up, the police are still fighting an idea rather than a set force of people. More will simply take their place and the idea will fight another day. That's what happened to us in Iraq. We couldn't kill them as fast as we were making new ones enemies for life. Given that US wouldn't go 1989 style on everyone, whereas HK police have repeatedly demonstrated they do not consider protesters human being at all, the outcome might be different. Actually the US has killed far more Iraqis than the Hong Kong police. Yeah, I hadn't heard of the Hong Kong police killing even one Iraqi, /s. Seriously though, you're absolutely right. Iraq war was incomparably larger in scale. Are we seriously comparing a war to a police response to protests? This is truly the darkest timeline. If police don't want to be treated like an invading army, then they shouldn't act like soldiers. If only upvotes could help more. To be fair, the only reason why I know anything is happening in Hong Kong is because of upvotes in Reddit. True, the same with the cartel crackdown in Mexico, though most of it seemed to disappear not long after being posted. Crap, what I missed that. Keeping up on the news is one of the most exhausting parts of being an adult. It's fucking horrible. That's not even the one I'm talking about. The government bowing to the cartels. When El Chapo's son was arrested, things went sideways. The government basically said, "Do you got us? Just take this fellow back." I live in Utah, so that one with the family was all over the news, since I guess they have family up here. That was also in the article. Meanwhile, government forces in Bolivia have killed 20+ people over the last 48 hours. Please don't get me wrong, HK is a noble cause and I absolutely want to see them successful, but why does Reddit push 3 HK stories to the front page a day while Bolivia, Chile, and Iraq get almost no front page coverage? Because the perception of HK is different. HK is seen as a major international city. It would be like saying, why are similar protests in New York City a bigger deal than issues in Somalia? HK is also different, because it's a city that has enjoyed liberty and rule of law for a while now, and is regressing to authoritarianism. That's very different from most of the other protests around the world. Bolivia had a military coup and they're burning indigenous flags, and parading the Bible through the presidential palace. But yeah, HK is the only one regressing. Edit. More people have been killed in Bolivia in the last 48 hours than have been killed in HK since the protests began. Yet American media is afraid to even call Bolivia what it is, a right-wing military coup. I think he means Bolivia is inferior and should know its place. There are some UBCO exchange students from my city who are in Hong Kong right now. I hope they get out now and safely. Speaking of UBCO, I'm surprised that there wasn't any Hong Kong poster or movement around the campus considering the amount of Hong Kong student in UBCO when we are compared to UBCV. Maybe they were removed by pro-China students? There are a lot more overseas mainlanders after all. Lots of anti-HK sentiment at the UOF, but we do have a sizable Chinese demographic. I was talking to a Chinese PhD student in my lab about the increasing violence and tension, and he told me not to believe all the propaganda. Crazy stuff. Not to say that the entire UOF Chinese population is anti-HK, just surprising to see it firsthand. I was just on the Polytechnic campus yesterday. It was like stepping into a guerrilla war camp. I spoke to many of the protesters and wished them luck. The mood was not hopeful, but also not bad. Determined would be the right word. A totally surreal experience, and now this shit is going down in that exact spot. Yikes. I'm hoping for the best, but no, China can't back down. Neither can Hong Kong. I know. It's a bad situation. Looks more like a pyrotechnic university. Strange that we all sound like Marie Antoinette's Let Them Eat Cake, more concerned with scoring a witticism than anything else. I get your point, but it's okay to have a laugh. You can be absolutely serious and still find the time for humor. Sometimes all you can do is laugh. Even so, we can get too detached. And someday, we will be mocked as something rolls over us. It's horrifying to imagine that someone my age is literally fighting for freedom or dying trying. No protesters have died. There was a post today saying that captured protesters will try to say their names and identify themselves so they don't end up as suicides. How does that count as a counter to no protesters have died? So it is starting now. My best wishes to the students. Except the majority of the people rioting here aren't students. Most of the real students evacuated early on. The rioters basically took over the campus. How about protesters, freedom fighters? Not rioters. These people have a purpose, and it's not chaos, or having fun being destructive. They've willingly put their lives at risk, may very well die, so that other people won't lose their rights. And to my understanding, they are doing something extremely brave by making themselves a huge stationary target. I've heard they are protecting the servers to prevent an internet blackout. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. Originally I would call them protesters, as I have for most of the demonstrations, but what's happening now is literally a riot. Making catapults, barricading a university campus with fire, shooting arrows and throwing bricks is not a protest. That is the definition of a riot, and you can't deny that. It's very suspect when people, like you, are so focused on the actions of the protesters, and labeling them without so much as a mention of the police's actions. I do condemn the police when they go too far, but what's happening right now is not the case. I support the original cause of the protests which has been achieved. But can you answer this honestly? Do you believe that what's currently happening at the university is considered to be a protest and not a riot?